Hey, team, welcome back to another incredible episode of the Intentional Agribusiness Leader Podcast. This is your host, Mark Jewell, and today I'm excited. I'm joined by my friend, Jody Soma. He's the general manager at Radcliffe Co-op over there in central Iowa. Jody, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. Great pleasure to be on here.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to get you in here. We've had Jody as a client in a previous role, and then he got recruited to go be the big GM over at Radcliffe and kind of work in his home area. And we're happy for him to be doing that, and even happier now to have him on the show and sharing some of his wisdom with you guys here today. So, Jody, same opening question everybody gets: what does it mean for you to be intentional?
You know, when I really feel like being intentional, I mean it's a daily thing, obviously. I think it's really having that purpose and goal driven mentality. I think it's leading with a respectful way and trying to empower, enable your team to be their best and just for their long term success and short term success here and wherever they want to achieve in life.
Yeah. One of the things I like about you, Jody, is you choose your words carefully, right? You're very intentional with your word choice and thinking it through a little bit before it comes out of the mouth. I mean, what does like being purposeful for you? I think a lot of people say it. How do you pull it off? I mean, there's some stressful times, and we get behind, we get tired, we get stressed.
Oh yeah.
How do you be purposeful?
I think it's what do you can get hung up on some things and let that really run your day or your life. I remember seeing this when I worked at a seed company. There was a plaque in our sales manager's office, and it said, "Have a bad minute, not a bad day."
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I think that stuck with me, kind of in that growth in my career when you can really get stuck on things just in your day-to-day life or your on your job. You're going to have challenges, no doubt about it.
Right.
Most days aren't going to go how they're supposed to be structured. You can have a plan in place, but there's going to be something that's going to railroad your day.
Right.
And especially when you have depending on the size of company, any size of company that has staff, you've got multiple individuals with their own lives and their own roles within a company. And you've got hundreds of customers that you work with or work for, and they don't have a plan in place until they want a plan in place. So
yeah.
I think it's just you have to kind of roll with the punches and just take on each challenge as it comes at you as well.
Right. Yeah. I think sometimes, I'm going to say some people, that sounds bad, but sometimes as humans, we seem to have this idea, or maybe it's a societal thing these days, Jody, where it's like, we have this idea that it's not supposed to be hard.
Oh,
right? Like it's not supposed to be challenging. We were supposed to be entitled to some level of success. And I know that there are people that think this way. Like they think that it's supposed to be easy. Like the common thing is now, like no matter what, like you deserve the tip. The DoorDash guy won't bring you your food if you don't tip him. I'm like, I'm getting my food before you get a tip, that's it does not work that way, at least not in my house. And that's something that, like you say, you have to be able to adapt and adjust and roll with the punches purposefully, because that's the job.
I think when you see, I guess in my opinion, when you see the very successful people, and no matter what they do, it's the ones that didn't pick to go do the easy stuff. I think the highly successful people, and especially in higher leadership roles, they're willing to do the hard things that others are not. There's when you're the general manager or CEO of a company, a lot of weight is on your shoulders. That it's not only for your role in your position, it's for everybody in that company and people that do business with that company. That's a lot to shoulder, really. And to take that with a mentality and grace with it, that can be its own challenge.
Right.
But when you empower your team, I guess I feel like too, that's where some of that comes to fruition, where things work a lot better than that micromanagement or um, lack of empowering your staff, I guess I would say.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. And we've all been in those situations. Nobody likes to be there. I think be purposeful, find a way to curate a better environment than that, right?
Yeah.
So, well, dude, tell us a little bit about you. Tell us about Radcliffe Co-op. This is unique. I mean, I'd never heard about it until you went to work there. It's right up. I call it. You're right up the road from my town, just up the street from Jewell, Iowa, which I always thought was first time I ever saw that driving through Iowa. I was tickled pink. I didn't know there was a town anywhere with my last name on it, and then I found that one, which I thought was great. But now, talk to us a little bit about yourself, Jody, your background, and Radcliffe.
Oh, thank you. So I've been in the industry almost 20 years. Just grew up around agriculture, farming. In fact, my grandparents, my family farmed around here and did business with this specific co-op. So it's very neat and honoring for me to come back to be this next general manager. This co-op has been in the business for 119 years. So it's a pretty special place. It's at this point, it's one of the few single location cooperatives in the state at this point. I think there's 8 of us total still.
Wow.
And even as we look at right now, there's no reason for us to merge. We still are successful in our own right and the service we provide. And we've got a tremendous loyal customer base too that really helps us thrive and wants this place to be here for the long term.
You bet.
So.
Yeah. Well, and kudos to them, the leadership from your board and everything, coming to a natural tenure where you have a long-term CEO or general manager retiring, and it's a natural point for a merger acquisition type situation. And they said, no, we're going to stay true to who we are. And we're going to find somebody who's local to the community, wants to be here in a situation like this. And they found you. So congrats.
Well, thank you. It's like I said, it's been a privilege and an honor to be here now. I've been here for a little over a year now, and we're going through some changes that just need to bring us into this next generation of agriculture and farming, just so we stay, relevant and suitable for our customer base too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, talk to me a little bit, man, about, as you go into that role, what does it look like now? You gotta steward this thing for the next several decades, right? And so, when you think about building the culture, obviously you've inherited a great culture in this place already, one that really values taking care of that local farmer, your farmer owners, farmer members, definitely a lot of, traditions, I'm sure, that have been in there. How do you steward this from a culture standpoint into the next, what you perceive the next, 10, 20 years?
Sure. And really, I previously I was at State Line Co-op, and that's where we worked with you.
Yep.
I think that was really, really a pinnacle point in my mentality on proper leadership. I've been in leadership roles at different companies, from the largest co-op in the state to now obviously this one of the smallest in the state.
Yeah.
And I think you can learn from a lot of that different culture, and those companies obviously are going to be managed and ran so differently.
Yep.
But I think when it really came down to it is what we really learned at State Line was that leadership really had to be that culture leader. And with it starting at the top and translating down throughout the whole company, that was important. I think you see some leaders that will get up and give a nice speech that tries to kind of rally everybody up, and this is how we want you to be, and then they walk off the stage and they conduct themselves in their own way that's not really suited in that culture they're preaching. So I think that's a big part of it to me. I think the other part is every person that works at your cooperative, for our standpoint, I think most cooperatives out there, is everybody is important and everybody has a purpose.
Yeah.
And I think that's important that all those individuals know that.
Yeah. Love it. I love it. Where do you think This is an interesting leadership question. So I know a lot of leaders don't really understand the impact that they have.
Mm.
Does that make sense? Like we don't often realize the power that's in our words. Okay. And I think that's also true when you think about a company like yours. That can also be true. Like we don't realize that maybe I'm just an agronomy salesperson. Maybe first year, second year, third year, I don't realize the impact that I actually carry into those farmer conversations. Does that make sense? Do you think
Yeah,
people like struggle to really notice or know how much like actual impact they have?
absolutely. I think you have to really. I think when I see successful leaders, people that I've looked up to are my mentors. It's been those individuals that are very involved with the aspects of all the company.
Yeah.
Um, that they're not above anybody else. That they're just another part of the team.
Mm-hmm.
I when I was an agronomist at one co-op, I'll never forget this moment that we were just out to eat in Ames with my young family at the time, and the agronomy manager sat in the booth next to us, and he's the one that hired me at that co-op. And so I introduced my wife and kids to him, and my son's like, "Well, who's this, Dad?" I'm like, "Well, this is my boss." And he turned around, he's like, "I'm not your boss. I'm just part of the team." So
Yeah.
just, I mean, that's somebody I've looked up to so much and modeled myself from. That you
Sure.
know, here, 18 years later, that's still, you know, to me meant a lot that
Yeah.
that was his mentality, that he didn't have to be like that, but yet he was, and
Yeah.
very humble person in that
Yeah.
way too.
Yep.
And now
Well,
he's the general manager of that co-op too. So I mean,
sure. Yeah, that's cool. There's something about humble leadership that we really respect.
yep,
And especially in today's world, like, I mean, we see even in the co-op system, I'm not going to name names, but we've had some things lately where that, the arrogance, right, has gotten the best of people,
yep,
and this just get bigger to get better, and or whatever, getting bigger before we get better probably is getting a lot of people in trouble. I know that's one thing that we focused a lot in our business. Our coaches have really, like, in some cases actually coached us to hold back. We're like, we're ready to run. We're ready to double, triple the business. We're, ready to rock and roll. We're like, hey, hold your horses there, bucko. Sometimes you got to get better before you get bigger.
yeah.
And I
Oh,
think right now in this down cycle in ag, like, I think this is a great opportunity for all of us to get better before we get bigger again.
absolutely. I exactly what you're speaking of. That people equity is a huge part of what makes us successful.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have the people in place, who cares if you have the best chem plant, fertilizer plant, corporate headquarters? None of that means anything if you don't have the right people present there to help drive the business.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Well, let's talk about people. Let's talk about talent, attraction, retention. What challenges are you facing with that in your role in a small company like this, where you've got probably 30 folks working there, something like that ballpark, I would guess. How does that work in a situation like yours?
I think we're pretty blessed. We're in a
Mm-hmm.
great community, and we have local communities that are strong, thriving communities too. So that helps us. But there's a lot of pride within this community, and as I've been very lucky and blessed that here, when I came in from an individual that had been here for over 40 years and been the general manager for over 25 years,
Yeah.
I replaced a longtime general manager. Um, and a month later, I had to replace our main office manager accountant because she retired.
Yep.
And at that point, we had no great structure, even beyond some of the other additional support roles, even within our office.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then just a retirement of our operation manager outside, one of our main operators. He also retired that summer. So here we had three major crucial roles that have been here for 40 plus years, each one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And to replace that with quality talent to make this place still yet thrive and be successful to where it was. But
Yeah.
now let's drive for the future. But, you know, not to be too selective, but you have to bring the right people in, that
Mm.
you just can't bring a warm body just to fill a role. That
Yeah.
sometimes that's such a negative standpoint in that too. You know, the struggle is hard when you need that extra people or person around, but having that right person that fits the team, fits the culture, fits your quality of individuals you want around,
Mm.
that has always been an important part to me. That,
Yeah.
and you know, we've all made those mistakes where we've hired the wrong kind of people and it doesn't work. I I've always taken something from a book I read years ago, Extreme Ownership.
Mm-hmm.
That one thing that really stuck out in that book to me was that if you have to let somebody go as a leader, how did you fail them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, you know, I myself as a leader, anybody that's a leader that had to let somebody go, that to me, that's the worst day in the world.
Yeah.
That you probably failed them as well. And,
Mm-hmm.
and there's situations where, you know, it's not a fit, and that person just, that they're not meant to be there.
Yep.
But when you have to let somebody go that maybe hasn't been given the best effort or maybe the best tools, and you still have to let them go,
Yeah.
you're, on a leadership standpoint, you're just as fault as that person that now no longer has a position there.
Right. Yeah. That's a tough call as a leader, right? Because I mean, if you have not been as intentional as you could have been,
Mm-hmm.
then chances are that, you may have in some cases stunted someone's growth, or not set clear enough expectations, or not held them accountable, held their feet to the fire, right? Because we're all busy, we get distracted doing other things, and we're like, we just need people to show up and perform sometimes. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, we haven't been maybe paying as close of attention as we could have. And then it's 3 years down the road, and we've been letting people get away with less than superior performance. And or maybe this came up on an interview I did yesterday, maybe we just need a warm body, and that's better than having nobody in that role. And so we're actually afraid to hold people accountable to it, because the mindset is that we won't be able to find somebody quickly enough. I'm going to have to take that on. And so we actually, in some cases, just pass people along.
Yeah.
And this is where, like, part of the reason the podcast is focused on intentional leadership, and we have these types of conversations, is because we need to be talking about and thinking about on a regular basis, like, what does it mean to really be intentional? How do you be intentional for people? How do you really be purposeful for the people that you lead, so that we don't have those situations where now you got to potentially let somebody go, but you're also questioning in the back of your mind, like, did I fail them?
Yep. There's been an exercise, I guess, I felt has been successful for me, and that started in the seed industry, where, you know, as a district sales manager, you know, you have your success plan, your planning, that's put in place for the year. And then I started utilizing that with my dealer network and all my dealers of,
Mm-hmm.
okay, what is needs to be embedded in your success plan. You know,
Yeah.
instead of a business plan, let's call it a success plan. Because I'm just as accountable as your manager to help you be successful as you
Right.
are to do your part. So I've tried to create that, you know, throughout the whole company. It doesn't matter if you're, you know, dumping grain, or you're an agronomist, or you're a regional manager. I think everybody needs to have that guidance of success plan that's put
Mm-hmm.
in place. That's a very fluid document too. That's not a, here's for the next 12 months, this is what your plan is, now make it go happen, and then we'll revisit it in 12 months again.
Yeah.
And that gets hard, but you know, I really feel like that's a thing that it might be in a moment that something's changed. Well, let's revisit that success plan,
Yeah.
or let's at least hold ourselves accountable to look back at that success plan quarterly.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's a 5-minute conversation, or maybe it's a whole, let's go grab some lunch and let's really go look at this thing and figure where we're at and what we need to do.
Yeah.
But I think then, no matter what your roles in the company, you feel like you have a responsibility in your role and your part.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, and if it means that you have to incentivize some of that stuff, that I always invite every individual to have goals on there just the same as I have goals for them too. I
Mm-hmm.
want them
Yeah,
to have individual goals so they feel like they're achieving something they want to achieve too.
absolutely. Yeah. And it's such an important conversation, tough one to have. By the way, we do have a cool resource for the listeners. If you guys want this, all you got to do is email me, mark@themomentumcompany.com. You can, we have something called the 90-day tracker. It starts off with what's your 1-year vision? What's the 3-year vision? It's designed to be a conversation with, between a manager and an employee, but somebody could quite literally just use it themselves. What's the 1-year vision? What's the 3-year vision? What are your 90-day goals for yourself personally? And like, and we do it by quarter, right? So it starts January 1, and you can start at any time of the year, regardless of which quarter you're in. It's designed to track. And so you have 3 personal goals, 3 professional goals, 3 big things for the quarter, right?
Yeah.
And it's like anybody who's got more than 3 big things, like noteworthy big things. I'm not talking like get the seed delivered. Like that's important and we got to get it delivered, but there's usually, I mean, that's a core function of the job. That's day to day, right? Like, maybe getting the 10,000 units sold, right? That's a 90 or 180 day type situation, right? And so, but what are our 90-day goals? And then how do we break that into 30-day benchmarks? So there's a line for 30-day benchmarks, and then any sprints, right? Like we're launching a new program today, and I'm going to be on a sprint until May 9th. So it's a 9-day sprint, only till the 9th, because then I'm leaving. I'm going out of the country for 9 days after that. So it's got to be done before I leave for the Caribbean. So fun fact, my wife and I are becoming certified bareboat sailors, getting our captain's licenses. Yeah. So for her 50th birthday next year, we're actually getting a boat in the Mediterranean with all of our kids, and we're captaining our own ship in like a 46-foot catamaran in the Mediterranean for like 2 weeks. So yeah, so we got to go get certified. So that's one of our 90-day goals, right? Get the certification, learn how to sail. I'm going to be cramming on those books this week, I promise. But we do the sprint, right? The sprint is something that is temporary. And I think a lot of times in ag, the sprint just becomes every day.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where burnout starts to come in. So the idea is like, hey, this is a 7-day sprint or a 14-day sprint. And when the 14 days is over, the project is done. Wherever you're at, let's take a look at the results. Let's see how we did. I did another one here at the beginning of April. I had a sprint, and I went after one of our new offers, and I worked really hard on it for 2 weeks. And then when it was done, like it's done. Mm-hmm. And we let it go, and we don't keep going with it. And it makes it easier for you to break things down into bite-sized chunks. And then in the bottom of it, we put a place where you can just log your wins. Because so few people focus on their wins. They focus on the stuff they screw up all day, but they don't log progress. And we got to do a better job of that as leaders and helping our people notice what they've done well.
I think that's a great point. I've tried to create a little more structure here, I guess I would call that. And I'm a person that could always use better structure myself too.
Yeah.
But with our staff, we're utilizing a program called Microsoft Planner.
Yep.
So, and you can assign things to all these individuals. Other people can add things on the board. And to me, it's at a little bit of accomplishment that we were joking about it. In fact, this morning, there's that little ding that does when you complete it. And
yeah.
I'm like, it kind of makes you feel like, okay, yep, check. You got that thing done.
You get that little dopamine hit, man. It's addicting.
Yeah. So I think there's quality in that structure too, that, you're just not aimlessly wondering, well, what's next, or gosh, what have I forgotten? So having some of that structure in place just helps everything work a little bit smoother too.
Yeah. Absolutely. Structure is necessary, man. You just take you can look in God's design everywhere. If you look at a river is incredibly functional when the water is flowing between the banks. The banks give the water structure, right? But as soon as there gets to be too much water in the river and it overflows the banks, now you've got a flood on your hands, and you can't use it. You can't run cargo up and down it. It's dangerous.
Yeah.
Right. It's no longer functional for our productivity. It makes a mess of things, So structure is incredibly useful. But then we try to put too much into the structure and we overflow our banks. And we're the same way. From a human behavior perspective, we always try to overdo it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's that mindset of, the feasibility of what you can do and can accomplish versus what you can really actually accomplish in a time period. I'm very guilty of that. My wife will tell you that too, that my concept of time sometimes can be skewed, that something that feels like it should take an hour or half a day now takes days to do. And it's just, and sometimes that's the challenge we have, because a lot of times you can't just focus on that one task.
Yeah. Wish we could, man. I wish I could just go from one thing to the next thing and never have any overlap whatsoever. But the reality is sometimes I got to set it down. I may or may not have about 15 tabs open on my Google Chrome on my laptop right now. So you gotta close. I thought about just purging it all today. I'm like, man, if I don't think about it, then it wasn't important.
I'm very guilty of that too. I just, you're on to the next thing, and you'll come back to that thing where you kind of left it off. And you have to be good at multitasking. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, the other day I got to the point where I had so many tabs open that I couldn't actually, there was nothing left except the logo or the little insignia of the thing I was on. Right. And I thought, okay, pause, reset. We got to close some things down. Let's go back. Let's brain dump. And this is what I do is I'll just go brain dump it onto a legal pad. What was I working on? Right. And that way I can come back to it later. I can always go find the web page or whatever the tool I was using. But it's so easy in this day and age to just get ping pong from one thing to the next thing. And even guys like you and I are less than intentional. Sometimes we got to get better.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Dude, talk to us a little bit about like books, resources, podcasts. What do you like? What's useful for you? What are you reading?
As far as books go, I kind of mentioned it earlier. And it's one I'll revisit here and there, but that extreme ownership.
Yeah. Yep.
Not that everything with it fits, but there's a lot of pieces of that leadership and some of those stories within that book.
Yeah.
Even for somebody that's on the road a lot, that's a really great, easy audiobook to just put on in your drive. Leaders Eat Last. That's one I've kind of taken a few good pieces from.
Yep.
Gosh, well, you're a Minnesota grad, and I don't know how you feel about your coach up there, but I've always liked PJ Fleck.
Sure.
And Iowa State almost hired him at one point before Minnesota did.
Sure.
But he's got that mantra of row the boat.
Yep.
And John Gruden wrote a book with him, and it just kind of depicts his story. And I've listened to that one a few times. It's a short one. It's it's interesting to listen to, being that undersized guy, that underdog constantly, and where that's taken him, and just creating that mantra from a really awful thing that happened in his life to here's how I want to proceed my life moving forward, and honoring that difficult time in a sense too. So
good. Yeah.
I guess that's 3 really good ones that I come up with.
I like it. I like it a lot. I'll have to check into the PJ book. I've not, I didn't even know he had a book out, so I'll have to check into that one. But yeah, it's, he definitely has changed football culture in Minnesota to an extent, but not entirely. Because the one thing that drives me nuts about Minnesota sports is under PJ, and we've got the best overall record during his tenure that we've had in a while. Right. But it's like, as soon as we don't have now a 9-4 or a 10-3 record, like people are starting to call for like, hey, it's not good enough anymore. We used to be 3-10 every year, right? 2-9 or 2-10 or what? It's like, can we just not? I mean, we've got a bowl game. I don't think he's lost a bowl game. I think he's won every single bowl game that we've gone to, or close to it. And so don't quote me on that, but I think that's pretty close. One at the most, and in most, I think there's only 1 year we didn't get to go to a bowl game since he's been there. So that always ticks me off about Minnesota fans is it's like we're never good. Like male sports in Minnesota, we've never won a championship in football, never won a championship in basketball. Right. We've got a couple of World Series wins with the Twins from like 35 years ago now, right? Is that long ago? Oh my gosh, it was 35 years ago, wasn't it? So thinking back, like, yep, I was in third grade the last time the Twins won a World Series. So, it's we don't have a lot of success, and we got to we should be grateful for the successes we do have, right? Right, like I said before, we focus on the wins that you do have and be grateful. So
Iowa State's in the
PJ
same boat. I think very similar culture, very similar leadership that we have now.
Yeah.
And you look at a guy like Matt Campbell, and his biggest thing he always talks about is, creating these boys into men and helping them be them best selves. I think that's it sounds simple. It's a simple concept, but it's hard at the same time.
Yeah.
You're talking about 100 and some kids on the team that are just come from all different walks of life, and you create a culture around that.
Yeah.
So,
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. It's we live just south of Chapel Hill, North Carolina now. And so you have, there's a very thick, especially basketball culture here. Sports are different in the Southeast than they are back in the Midwest, and I kind of miss the Midwest a little bit for that, but it's, so now we got Bill Belichick with the, with the UNC Tar Heels. So it's a whole other interesting level of I'm interested to see actually what that does and how that goes.
Yeah.
Because I've never seen a highly successful NFL coach go then be successful in that in the NCAA. So
those
we'll see.
Usually don't translate back and forth, do they? You've seen a lot of very successful.
But I think with the portal now, it's a different deal, right? Because you can, if you got the star power with the portal, you can recruit. Mm-hmm. And, that's actually one of the things we talk about in our Ag Leader Summit program, which is the attractor factor. So people will gravitate to you if they know who you are, if you know who you are, what you stand for, what you don't stand for. It's one of the reasons PJ is having success in Minnesota, is because people want to go row the boat.
Yeah, I think that's what part of the success I hope we, for the long term, have here is that just known in the surrounding communities or this community that this is a quality place to work. Mm. That if you want to go work somewhere where you're appreciated and valued, and we only are trying to bring the best of the people here to be here. I think that hopefully that'll be an attractor in itself, that, in that recruitment, that's what we have to do in every industry now too, though. But you've got to be good at recruiting the people and selling them the vision, selling them the dream, just for the place themselves, all of that.
So well said, man. If you want a really good example of this for you, Jody, as well as anybody else listening, the Josh Shaver from Logan Ag podcast that we did. Here's they're independent ag retailer, but they were no bigger than you are. I mean, it's a few locations 5 years ago, and today they're same 5 locations. Well, they've picked up a couple of like agronomy locations without a lot of people at them. Sure. So they've somewhat extended the number of locations, but the people holding locations are the same, and they've grown to from 46 to now 122 employees. Wow. Since 2020 when we started working with them.
It's very impressive. I mean, that's hard too.
And it's like in a world where there's nobody wants to work here. Nobody wants to work at these, that's the story, right? Like we have a hard time finding employees. And I'm just like, I'm here kind of standing in the middle of that stream, saying to leaders in agribusiness and leaders in co-ops and leaders in independent retail and even supplier level, manufacturer level, like I don't buy it. I don't buy it. And I think it's lack of intention. I think it's lazy leadership in some respects. Yeah. And we want to buy the story. We want to buy the mainstream story that it's hard. And I'm not saying that it's like easy, but we're missing often a component of people having the attractor factor as the leader. And they're not, in some cases, they should actually be more picky with who they let in.
I agree. I totally agree.
I'm going to I make no friends by saying that, by the way, like that. And nobody ever wants to hear that from me.
I've experienced it from multiple levels of that.
Yep.
Sometimes it's hard hiring those right individuals. I mean, there becomes a desperation state of we just need somebody to fill that role. Just
Yeah.
who's the best of hopefully one or two candidates.
Yeah.
This, and it's not to pick on this next generation. This next generation, this generation that's in the workforce or coming to the workforce 10 years or less, their mentality is way different than what we came in, 20 years ago.
Yep.
And it's nothing right, wrong, or different. It's just, it's different. They have a quality of a work-life balance that they won't, this is what they're going to have.
And this is it, right? I mean, that's one of the biggest differences is like our generation wanted or wants work-life balance, but we'll sacrifice it to get the job done.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, from my beginnings, I had to work at somewhat of the bottom and work my way up.
Yeah.
And no, that's not where I wanted to stay, but you had to be willing to start there. And that's where a lot of us had to start, was down at the bottom and earn your way through it, earn some respect along the way.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily how it works now.
Here's how different it was, Jody. Get this. I just remembered this as you're talking because you're, Central Iowa. So I moved to Carroll, Iowa in, let's call it 2008. I applied for a job at West Central Cooperative. I don't even remember what the job was, but I was in Carroll and they had, they're right there in Ralston. Yeah. And so I applied for, and I never heard back.
Yeah.
Four-year degree, ag ed, willing to work hard, whatever, wrote all the stuff on the resume, submitted it, never got a call.
Yeah.
That's how different it was from 20 years ago to not even 20 years ago to today.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was almost, it felt rare to be able to go be an agronomist, even straight out of school. That's not how it worked. You had to go do a little bit of operational or a little bit more experience, then work into a role like that.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of long career individuals in those roles that they never left them.
Yep.
So you were just waiting for some individual to finally retire so you could get that role. And it was such a high sought after role.
Right.
And now that role, not to me that I think there's some prestige with that role. But that role has kind of changed. That, a lot of our farming community, they've also got a degree now. They understand some things that they don't have to fully rely on that local expert either. So now it's just become a little bit of a different service provider or, network of somebody to be able to do business with. So it's just changed over, and it'll always continue to keep changing. I think somebody once told me that in this industry, that if you don't like change, you're doing the wrong kind of job.
Yep. 100%, man. Jody, this has been a great conversation. I know we're running up against our time here, and I appreciate you doing it, man. Any last thoughts for the podcast listeners?
I just think you have to really commit to culture. And I think that's one thing that, especially going through your program, that we really come to find true, that if you don't commit from the top all the way through, I remember hearing one of our individuals that he was just an operational person that we had at one of our group meetings. I mean, we were kind of doing our wrap up from our 2-day session, and he just kind of turned to me and I would have thought he was the one that would have sat there and just like, this isn't for me. What the heck am I doing here? He turned to me and said, everybody in the company needs to go through this.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I took that to our leadership group, like, hey, I mean, look what this did to this individual. The person that we thought would sat in the room would have just been like, well, I guess this is better than working for 2 days.
Yep.
And really, really said something to me that impacted me that, you're right.
Yep.
That, I mean, from the leadership all the way down to anybody in this company, everybody needs to understand this mentality, and not just the focus of making yourself better for your company or your job, but in your life.
Yeah.
And I hope that I can continue to grow myself as a person. And I think that's something you have to really commit, that even at 45, I've got so much growth to still have in my life.
Yeah. Man.
I don't know if that'll ever stop. I hope it never stops.
No, man. No, I hope so too, man. I'll share this really quick as we close out. I had breakfast this morning with a gentleman from church, and I had felt a call while I was at church a while ago to just kind of open myself up to not only meet new people, but specifically those that maybe are kind of later stages in life. Just have coffee with them, give them someone to talk to. Just to have a conversation. I kind of grew up in a family that did this kind of thing. So I was getting back to my roots a little bit. So my pastor introduced me to this guy named Dave, and I met Dave this morning for the first time. We've been trying to connect for 9 months. We finally found a day that would work, and he's 86. His wife passed away last year. Looks maybe 74. I mean, he's in good shape for an 86-year-old man, and still growing, man. I mean, he's, misses his wife dearly. 64 years they were married.
Wow.
But still reading. Right. He asked for a copy of my wife's book. I'm like, I'll bring it to you next time next time I see you at church, I'll get you a copy of it. I'll get her to sign it for you. 86, still learning, still growing, and I think that there's a lesson so he's literally almost twice as old as I am.
Yeah.
Right. He's 2 years shy of twice as old as we are. Right. Man,
those are the neat people though. I mean, we have those walk through our door every day. It's just, you never dismiss those people that they've got some amazing experiences that they've probably forgotten more about than we've experienced in our life. And, I always said that to interns too. Don't dismiss the older people in our company.
Yeah.
Listen to them. They've experienced so much.
Yeah.
And they're great people to learn from. And most of them are very willing to be that mentor or teacher.
Oh yeah. 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 I mean, I felt like it was something I needed to go do, but I'm pretty sure that I was on the receiving end of that conversation this morning.
Very neat. I've been there too. It's a neat situation to be in. Absolutely.
Yep. Absolutely. All right, Jody, thanks for being on the show, man. I appreciate the heck out of you.
Oh, hey, I appreciate it too. I really enjoyed our time and, our grown friendship and all that stuff.
You bet.
You're doing some very special things that are impacting people's life and world, and that ripple effect just, goes so much further than just the individual. That's for sure.
You bet. Awesome, man. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.